I've always believed that love, when it's real, shows up in the small things. When Brian was 8, he used to leave little post-it notes in my lunchbox. Love you, Mom. Don't forget to smile. I saved every single one. They're still in a shoebox under my bed next to a pair of Jack's old reading glasses and a dried rose from our 35th anniversary dinner. So maybe that's why it hit so hard. The voice didn't come through as yelling. It came through as casual, flat, almost bored. I had just finished a FaceTime call with Brian. Nothing special. He showed me a listing he was working on, a cute fixer-upper in Beaverton with lots of light. I told him I was proud of him, and he smiled, a little distracted, then said, "Talk soon, Mom." But I didn't hit the end button right away. I don't know why. Maybe my thumb missed. Maybe I was tired. Maybe some part of me needed to hear what came next. There was a rustling sound, a door closing. Then Brian's voice, again clearer now. "She's not going to last much longer on her own, babe. I mean, have you seen her place? She still uses checks. Who does that?" A woman's laugh. His wife, Tara. "So just move her in with us, or get her into one of those retirement villages with tiered care. My dad loves his." "Yeah, but the money's the thing," Brian continued. "I've looked at her assets. She's got enough to cover care and give us a decent cushion. But she's stubborn, sentimental. She won't sign over anything unless she thinks it's her idea." He paused. "Honestly, we might have to stage something. A small scare. Nothing drastic. Just enough to show the family she's not all there anymore." Silence. Then a low chuckle. "She's too emotional to manage her finances. It's not safe for her to keep control." I sat frozen at my kitchen table, my teacup still in hand. The wind outside pushed against the old window panes, but I didn't hear it. All I heard was the sound of my son, the boy who once clung to my hand when crossing the street, now strategizing how to legally strip me of autonomy. He wasn't angry. He wasn't desperate. He was calm, as if I were an outdated system he needed to phase out. That hurt more than anything. The call finally disconnected itself. I don't know how long I sat there. The next time I moved, it was to pull out the little ledger where I kept track of my accounts. I flipped through it page after page of precise entries: groceries, medication, utilities, the $500 I wired Brian last spring for emergency car repairs. Too emotional, I'd managed on my own for 15 years since Jack died. I paid off our mortgage, refinanced the house when I needed new plumbing, and helped both my grandkids with their first year of college tuition. And now I was a burden, a problem to be solved. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to reconcile the boy I raised with the man on the call, wondering when love turned into calculation. But by sunrise, I stopped wondering. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror in the bathroom, toothbrush idle in my hand. I looked at my reflection, lined soft, a bit worn at the edges. But the woman staring back still had sharp eyes, still had fire somewhere beneath the sleep-deprived dark circles and the cardigan she'd owned since 1994. I remembered standing in front of a classroom, 25 pairs of eyes watching me as I diagrammed a sentence or introduced To Kill a Mockingbird. I remembered the thrill of shaping young minds, of making kids believe they could think for themselves. They called me Ms. Ellison the Hammer back then, not because I was mean, but because I was clear, precise, firm, but fair. Where had that woman gone? I hadn't seen her in years. She'd disappeared sometime between Jack's first hospital stay and the year Brian got divorced the first time. Between Rachel's anxiety attacks and Lily's moving cross-country. Somewhere along the way, I became the support beam everyone leaned on. Quiet, dependable, always available. Reliable Ruth. Easy Ruth. And in that quietness, I'd been repackaged as soft, slow, irrelevant. As someone who needed decisions made for her, even by her own son. That realization stung. But it also did something else. It woke me up. I walked back into my bedroom, pulled out the wooden box where I kept old photos, and flipped through them with deliberate hands. There I was at 32 on a hike with Jack, my hair wild in the wind and my smile fierce. There I was at 45 in front of my first class of advanced placement students holding a red pen like a sword. There I was at 59, standing proudly between my 3 kids at Lily's graduation, my shoulders square, my eyes full. That woman didn't vanish. She just got buried under everyone else's needs. And I was done being buried. I didn't know exactly what I'd do next, but I knew it had to start with reclaiming the woman I used to be. The one who didn't ask for permission to be taken seriously. The one who didn't smile to keep the peace. The one who, when pushed too far, pushed back harder. Gratitude doesn't vanish in a single moment. It fades quietly, slowly, like a photograph left too long in the sun. I used to keep a folder in my desk marked thank you notes. It had cards from students, letters from parents, even a few scribbled notes from neighbors when I helped during their tough times. But it's been years since I added anything new. After Jack passed away, the house felt emptier than I thought possible. Brian moved back in for a while, said it was just until the business stabilized. He was 32, newly divorced. His credit was a mess. I didn't hesitate. I cooked for him. Let him use Jack's old office for client calls. Helped pay for his auto insurance when he got behind. And when he finally moved out again a year later, he didn't leave a thank you note. Just a sink full of dishes and a voicemail saying, "Hey, Mom, left the keys on the hook. You'll probably want to get that leak in the basement looked at." Lily called occasionally, usually when she was in a crisis. "Mom, I'm late on rent again. Could you maybe—" I always helped. I wanted to help. But after the 3rd or 4th time, she stopped saying, "I'll pay you back." And I stopped expecting it. Rachel. Well, Rachel was the only one who ever sent flowers on my birthday. But even that stopped after she got promoted and started dating someone new. "Too busy," she'd say. And yet, they all expected the same thing from me. Stability, support, silence. When I co-signed the loan for Brian's new car 2 years ago, I remember standing in that dealership office watching him smile at the salesperson while I nervously read the fine print. He didn't even look back at me. That's when it hit me. They didn't see me anymore. They saw the idea of me. The mother who would always say yes, who would always be there, who would never ask for anything in return. And maybe that was partly my fault. I had made it easy to forget I had limits. I never set boundaries. I never pushed back. I never asked for help when the furnace broke or when the arthritis made the stairs unbearable. I didn't want to be a burden, so I made myself invisible. And now they thought I was too fragile to control my own life but sturdy enough to hold theirs. That's not love. That's convenience. And I was finally ready to stop being convenient. If you ever want to hear the truth, go to someone who stopped caring about being polite a long time ago. That's Joanne. We met in college, both studying literature back then before she pivoted to law, and I became a teacher. Even now, at 71, she walks like she's late for court and speaks like every sentence should be read into evidence. So when I showed up at her apartment 2 buildings down, she didn't ask why I looked like I hadn't slept in a week. She just poured tea, handed me a blanket, and said, "Start from the top." I told her everything. The FaceTime call, Brian's words, Tara's chuckle, the phrase "too emotional to manage her finances." She didn't gasp. She didn't say, "I can't believe it." She just narrowed her eyes and said, "So, what are you going to do?" "I don't know," I replied. "I feel like I'm living in someone else's story." Joanne scoffed. "No, you're living in the version of your story they wrote for you. The passive, grateful, retiring mother who lets them manage her like a bank account with a pulse." I winced. She wasn't wrong. You've been too nice for too long, Ruth. You raised decent kids, but somewhere along the line they started thinking love looks like leverage. That's not your fault. But it is your responsibility now to stop it. I stared into my tea, suddenly ashamed. I let them treat me this way. Joanne's tone softened. You let them because you loved them, because you wanted peace. That's not weakness. That's being a mother. Then she leaned forward. But now it's time to be something else. I looked at her. Like what? Like a woman who remembers she's still here, still sharp, still holding the pen. Because if you don't write the next chapter, they will. And trust me, Ruth, they're already trying. I sat back, absorbing her words. She reached over to the side table and handed me a file. I drew up this basic document template after my sister went through something similar. It's a starter for a financial power of attorney revocation and a few things we can file to protect your assets. I blinked. You kept this, just in case I keep a lot of things? And this? She tapped the folder. Has your name on it now? I didn't say anything, but my hands tightened on the manila edges like they were a lifeline. I made meatloaf. Not because I thought they deserved it, but because some habits die hard and my kids always loved it growing up. Brian arrived first with Tara in tow, uninvited. She gave me a stiff smile and a bottle of mid-range wine. Rachel came in next, quiet, unsure. She hugged me, but didn't hold on. Lily, predictably, was late. She breezed in 10 minutes after we'd all sat down, phone in hand, muttering something about traffic. I waited until the plates were half empty and no one was talking. Then I placed my fork down and looked around the table. We're not here just to eat, I said. Brian set his glass down. Mom, what's going on? I overheard you. His brow furrowed. What? Last week, after our FaceTime. You didn't hang up properly. I heard everything you said to Tara. Tara's fork froze midair. Rachel's face turned pale. Lily whispered, "Oh God." Brian, to his credit, didn't lie. But he didn't apologize either. He just said, "You weren't supposed to hear that." No, I said evenly. I wasn't. But I did. Silence fell like a curtain. I leaned forward, voice steady. I have supported this family for decades. Emotionally, financially, without complaint. I buried your father and still managed to pay Rachel's grad school loans and Brian's credit card debt. I lent Lily money 3 times this year alone. Brian opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. I'm not saying this to guilt trip anyone. I'm saying this because I need to make something very clear. I took a breath. This house, my accounts, my autonomy, they are mine, and they are no longer up for discussion. Rachel blinked. Mom, no one's trying to take anything from you. You were planning to move me into a facility, I interrupted, without asking, without involving me. You said I was too emotional to handle my own finances. Tara shifted in her seat. Brian stared at the table. And maybe I have been too emotional, I said softly. But that emotion raised 3 children. That emotion buried a husband. That emotion kept this family standing when everything else was falling apart. I looked at each of them. I am not your responsibility, but I am also not your problem to manage. Lily stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. No one is stealing from you, Mom. I looked at her calmly. Then you won't mind if I say no next time you ask for rent help. She flushed. Wow. Brian pushed back from the table. So what, you're cutting us off now? No, I said. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference. Rachel was the only one who remained still. Quietly, she said, You're right. All eyes turned to her. Rachel met my gaze. You're absolutely right. And I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. My chest tightened, not with anger, with something close to relief. Brian stood. We should go. Take your wine, I said, not unkindly. It's a good bottle. He didn't. Rachel stayed behind to help with dishes. When she left, she hugged me again. This time, she didn't let go right away. The next morning, I stood in the doorway of the guest room, the one Jack painted yellow the year Rachel turned 11. The sunlight filtered through the lace curtains, casting soft shapes on the hardwood floor. Every corner whispered memories. Brian's first science project, Lily's broken wrist. The night Jack sat with me after my diagnosis scare, both of us pretending not to be terrified. This house had been a witness to it all, but lately it had felt less like a witness and more like a tomb. I wandered through each room that day, touching walls like they were the skin of a long-lost friend. I wasn't just walking through a house, I was walking through a version of myself I no longer wanted to carry. The woman who waited for calls, who said yes too quickly, who was always last on her own list. That version of me had lived here, and now it was time to go. I called Joanne that afternoon. "I'm selling," I told her. She didn't ask if I was sure. She just said, "I know a realtor who's discreet and smart. She helped my cousin sell after her divorce." A week later, I met with the realtor in the same kitchen where I used to frost birthday cakes. She was young, professional, and respectful. She didn't speak down to me, didn't rush. When she handed me the listing paperwork, she said, "This market's in your favor, and this house has character. Families will love it." I nodded, staring at the pen in my hand. And then I signed. It felt like breathing out for the first time in years. I didn't tell the kids until everything was finalized. I emailed them a short message: "I've sold the house. Moving to a small apartment downtown. It's time. Don't worry, this was my decision and I'm happy about it." Brian replied with a terse, "Okay." Lily didn't respond. Rachel sent a simple, "Proud of you, Mom." That one I saved. The new place was smaller, but it had tall windows and white walls that begged for art. I unpacked only what I loved: books, my tea kettle, the photos I actually liked looking at. The rest, donated, released, forgotten. I wasn't running away from a house. I was walking toward a life that I could finally call mine. The first night in the new apartment was almost too quiet. No pipes rattling in the attic. No ticking of the old grandfather clock Jack loved, but never fixed. No text messages lighting up the screen at 9:48 p.m. With Mom, "Can I ask a favor?" Just stillness. At first, it felt like something was missing, like I was forgetting a task or had let someone down. But slowly, silence stopped feeling like absence. It started feeling like peace. I made coffee in the morning and drank it on the little balcony. There was a neighbor across the way who watered her plants in a bathrobe and waved when she saw me. I liked that. On day 3, I unpacked a box labeled "Someday." Inside were watercolors I hadn't touched since Rachel was in high school, a half-finished sketchbook, and a camera Jack gave me for our 20th anniversary. I placed them all on the dining table, which no longer needed to seat 6, just me. That afternoon, I took the camera and walked through the park. No agenda, no plan, just looking. I photographed 2 pigeons fighting over a sandwich crust, a child spinning in slow circles with a leaf crown, a man on a bench deep in a book, unaware he looked like peace in human form. When I got home, I ordered more paintbrushes online, signed up for a watercolor class at the local senior center, said yes when Joanne invited me to a poetry night downtown. For the first time in decades, I wasn't Mom, Grandma, or Mrs. Ellison. I was just Ruth. Ruth who liked the way light hit old brick buildings. Ruth who laughed out loud at a cheesy open mic poem. Ruth who no longer felt guilty about not answering every call right away. The calls came less frequently anyway. Brian hadn't contacted me since I sold the house. Lily sent a meme once, no words. Rachel checked in every Sunday, and that was enough. I didn't need much, just space. And finally, I had it. I was watering the ferns on my windowsill when I heard the knock. Not a neighbor's knock. Not the kind that says, "Hey, I brought muffins." No, it was harder, sharper, familiar. I opened the door to find Brian standing there, hands in his coat pockets, a look on his face like he wasn't sure whether to smile or command. "Mom," he said. "Nice place." I stepped aside wordlessly, letting him in. He looked around, nodding with fake appreciation. "So this is where you ended up, huh?" I didn't answer. He didn't waste time. I wanted to talk to you about an opportunity, he said, settling on my small sofa without invitation. There's a new commercial property deal I'm working on. Low risk, high return. And I know you just sold the house, so I figured. He paused, then added with a chuckle. It'd be smarter to invest that cash than let it rot in a savings account. I studied him. His suit was too expensive for someone still paying off old debt. His smile too thin to be real. You figured, I said slowly, that after trying to stage a false decline in my mental health, you'd just pivot to real estate pitching. He blinked. That's not fair, Mom. No, I agreed. It's accurate. He leaned forward, suddenly defensive. I'm not trying to take from you. I'm trying to build with you. Secure our future. You're not getting younger, Mom. You need someone to help manage things. And you think you're that someone. I'm your son. And I'm your mother, I said, walking calmly to the kitchen counter and picking up a small folder. I handed it to him. He opened it and scanned the top page. His face changed. You revoked power of attorney, he asked, voice tight. I never gave it, I said, but I filed to prevent you or anyone else from ever trying. He closed the folder. Jaw clenched. You didn't have to make this adversarial. I smiled then. Not cruelly, just truthfully. No, Brian, you did that when you stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as an asset. He stood. This is ridiculous. No, I said again softly. This is me finally setting the terms. He moved toward the door folder still in hand. Keep it, I said. Frame it if you like. He didn't say goodbye. He just left the door clicking shut behind him. And I turned back to my ferns, humming as I trimmed the leaves. It was at the bottom of an old tote marked library donations. I was sorting through my last few boxes when I found a plain envelope tucked between two outdated cookbooks. The handwriting on the front stopped me cold. If you're still around to read this, Jack. I opened it slowly, my hands trembling. The letter was on his old yellow legal pad paper folded neatly. The ink had faded slightly, but the curves of his script were unmistakable. Ruth, I don't know if you'll ever find this. Maybe you'll toss out this box. Maybe this gets shredded in some estate cleanup long after we're both gone. But if you're reading this, then you're still here and I'm not. First, I hope you're okay, truly. I hope the kids are good to you, but I also know you're the strong one, the fixer, the one who swallows pain with her morning coffee and still manages to smile like she means it. But I worry. Not about your survival. You'll survive anything. I worry you'll forget who you are when no one's asking for anything from you. You've spent so many years holding everyone else up that I fear you'll forget how to stand still and just be Ruth. So this is what I want you to remember. You are more than a wife, more than a mother, more than the sum of what you give to others. You are art and fire and quiet mornings and sharp laughter and fierce opinions. Don't let anyone rewrite that story for you. Not even our kids, especially not them. Live loud, even if it's in a little apartment with creaky floors. Take photos, write poems, paint things badly. Fall in love again, even if it's just with yourself. And know, wherever I am, I see you. Always, Jack. The letter slipped from my hands, soft as a breath landing in my lap. I sat there for a long time, not crying, just still. Jack had always seen me clearer than anyone. But somehow, even in death, he knew the battle I'd fight one day against invisibility, against being reduced to a role. He knew I'd forget. And he left me breadcrumbs back to myself. I refolded the letter and placed it in a new box labeled Keep Always. Then I made tea and watched the sun bleed gold into the sky, a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Jack had been right. I was still here, and I was just getting started. These days, I don't measure my life in decades or losses or bank statements. I measure it in small, quiet victories. Like finding the perfect shade of blue for a watercolor sky. Like saying no without guilt. Like laughing the loud, ugly kind over coffee with someone who doesn't want anything from me but my company. I started teaching again. Just a little. A local youth center hosts creative writing workshops, and they asked if I'd lead one. I agreed with one condition: no titles. I'm not Mrs. Ellison anymore. Just Ruth. They call me Miss R. I kind of like it. Joanne and I host dinner twice a month now. Sometimes Rachel comes, sometimes she doesn't, but when she does, she helps with dishes and we talk like equals. No agendas, just love. Brian hasn't called in a while, and that's okay. Lily sent me a photo of a painting she tried after seeing mine. It was lopsided and messy and beautiful. She didn't ask for anything, just said, "Thought of you." Maybe that's enough for now. Maybe healing doesn't look like perfect relationships, but like clear boundaries and a soft place to land when the day ends. I still keep Jack's letter on my nightstand. Sometimes I read it before bed, not because I need to remember what he said, but because I like hearing it again. Some days I wake up and forget how far I've come, but most days I wake up and smile at the morning light. Because what I've reclaimed isn't just peace, it's presence. It's permission. It's the knowledge that I'm still here, not as someone's burden, not as someone's safety net, but as myself. And for the first time in a very long time, that feels like more than enough.